Back to Miniature Dragon Comic Review, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington once again. I am here with my comic gurus, Woody and Alex. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey.
Hey.
And bling, and we got a bling. And, of course, I am your host, Daniel Doc Gentry. We are a week after Jet City, calming down a little bit off of our first semi-live show.
Yes.
Because we got a last-minute booth, but then, things happen.
Well, we got a last-minute panel room.
That's what I meant, sorry. And, just getting ready and lightening up. You guys do anything interesting this week? You guys got another show coming up I don't know about?
Just Emerald City.
Okay, so we got months and months and months to talk about that.
Yeah. I got bit by a dog last night.
Yeah, I want to talk about interesting things. If you haven't been carjacked, I don't want to hear about
it.
Okay. Yeah, unless you got footage of like that rough moment.
Yeah. Hey, pictures sure it didn't happen, yo.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So as long as you're not ticked about this situation, it should be all right.
I'm fine. So, just to talk about some comics.
Yeah, let's jump into Lobster Johnson, and then can anybody pronounce that for me?
Lobster Johnson?
McInerney. Words. Hey, it's a one-shoot from Lobster Johnson.
Okay, so Lobster Johnson is part of Hellboy, and he's basically the world's greatest supernatural investigator before Hellboy was. And so his stories take place way, way in the past, like in the 50s or something. And I believe he does appear in the current stories at some point, but as a ghost. And this one, it caught my eye. It was another one of those comics I'd picked up, on sale. And I thought, ooh, I've always wanted to read Lobster Johnson. And apparently he's going to be in the new Hellboy movie. So I thought it was rather topical because that news just came out like this week. So this story is very interesting. It's kind of one of those things where you feel like, even though it's a one shot, you feel like you're coming in the middle of a story where it basically has some terrorist guy that is in jail and he's arranged a breakout, and Lobster Johnson ends up being the one that stops it from happening. And it seems that he's being supported by a supernatural demon. And you have this really, which I thought was a really fun ghost story out in the forest around the prison, and dealing with Japanese demons and all kinds of weird, crazy stuff.
Cool monkeys with masks.
Yes, monkeys with masks, and I like it. He's out there fighting with guns, taking on monsters. So, anyways, what do you guys think of the comic?
So, as art goes, I definitely like it. But then again, I'm a person that loves the Hellboy kind of look, that kind of style, that feel, the way that it's illustrated. I definitely enjoy
Mike Mignola.
What's that?
This is totally a Mike Mignola book.
Yes. And it's like character design and everything of that nature. It's like I really liked the way of how they were illustrated. Mm-hmm. As story went, I thought it was quite interesting having like this very... now, to me, it felt like it was something within the Al Capone era. With the way that the story, the way that it was illustrated, various... the way that they talked and just kind of presented themselves. And what's that?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and it's like, I thought it was, like you mentioned, a really interesting tale of like, here's this gangster that, is looking to break out of prison. And there's this supernatural element that is in the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another thing that I thought was interesting is like Hellboy pretty much is surrounded by all the monsters, right? Like you got Liz, who's this uncontrollable pyrokinetic character. You've got Abe Sapien, who's a fish man. And then, of course, Hellboy, who's like son of the devil, apparently descended from King Arthur somehow, whatever. But, and then Lobster Johnson's just got like all the regular people that might be hanging out with Captain America or something. It's like just the newsboys or, whatever it is. But it's like he just got all these regular guys with a couple guns and the cute hat, the hats and whatever the outfits would be of that time period. And here he is in his cool, he's got his mask on, his goggles, and his, his aviator kind of gear. And, got style, but he's just a regular guy with no powers that I'm aware of, hunting monsters. You know.
So now, what about you, Doc? Your 3. What did you think about this?
So art, I didn't think it was anything special, but it was cool. And again, and I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. Sometimes you just got to go for the tried and true stuff, and you don't have to be totally obnoxious with your drawings. You don't have to be totally original, and to make it look good. I think for the story itself, it was great art. The storyline itself, I guess I've just never been a Lobster Johnson fan. Maybe I had to get into it. I did think it had some unique moments, but I felt like you really needed to know the storyline to kind of stay, because I was lost at certain parts personally. It just it threw me off a little bit. Nothing major. Again, the story though was it was a neat story, and I bet you if I knew a little bit more about him going into it, I would have enjoyed it immensely. And then the lettering, again, tried and true. And I think that we don't see this enough of just this normal. And I don't want to keep saying tried and true. I just can't. The original kind of comic book thing. You keep the art simple. Keep the story, conducive to the storyline itself, because that's what it felt like. That it was part of that world, even though I didn't understand it, and I could still follow along. And then the lettering, again, nothing crazy. It was just really good lettering that it was easy to follow the story. So, I mean, out of the 3, it definitely is a solid comic. It's nothing jump out there unless you're really big into monkeys with masks. Then I would say pick it up, because that's incredible. There's a lot of them in there. But outside of
teeth.
But outside of that, I mean, it wasn't anything unique. It wasn't mind blowing, but it wasn't bad. It was something like it was good, a good solid comic book.
I have heard over the years from other people that Lobster Johnson is just amazing as a character, and I never really, had read any of his books before. But as a first introduction of the character, again, like you feel like you're coming in the middle of a story, but I actually found it to be a fun supernatural tale, and I kind of feel like I got a feel for the character, like who this guy is and what his deal is. I mean, there's a lot of questions left unanswered, and I think I would be up for reading more about the character. I actually found him to be far more interesting than Hellboy, because I have the first Hellboy graphic novel, and it didn't compel me to keep reading. I wasn't it was a fun story, but I wasn't really on board. This one I felt that I enjoyed the character of Lobster Johnson a lot more than I did Hellboy.
When you're talking about that, I think Hellboy, and a lot of times we get this, especially in the movies, is people get wrapped up in what the character is, not the story of the character. Does that make sense? And I think sure. I'm not arguing with you, because I've read some Hellboy comics, and I feel like some of them are just spectacular out of the park, and then some of them are just here's Hellboy, and let's just concentrate on this one thing, and then everything else around it is just reacting to the character. Where this did not feel like that, and I think there's that distinction too. Lobster Johnson didn't feel like here's something reacting to Lobster Johnson. Just here was the world, and he's in it, and here's the story.
Yeah,
right. And there's definitely something to be said, storytelling wise, of Hellboy has that fish out of water kind of syndrome, because he's obviously such a presence, because it's like he is a the bringer of the apocalypse. He is this monster that has to deal with an urban landscape with mysticism in the background. And it's like it would have been a totally different story if you had this same story with Hellboy opposed to Lobster Johnson, and it's like how they would react, how they would deal with the situation and threat would have been a whole different kind of story direction.
Been a lot more punching.
Yeah, again, I think it was pretty solid, though. Did you guys find any faults in it at all? Or?
I don't think so. I thought it was really interesting. One of the things that I liked was that there's this part where his friends are being taken over by the demon monkeys, and he's trapped in kind of a dream. right? That he sees this whole place where he's fighting against this demon, and I, as a reader, it wasn't clear to me whether or not he was in a dream world or in an actual parallel universe, a pocket dimension of some sort, or if he's hallucinating the whole thing. Like, is he really there, or is it a dream? And is that really his friend, or is it? And should he shoot his friend? And as a reader, I'm sufficiently invested in this story that I kind of care. And I didn't know which one was true, so it's like, what's he going to do? I felt like I had some stakes on it, and that moment for me, the story was really tense because, like, what would you do? Do you because my first gut reaction is this guy's probably not real, but then I would have shot him and then killed my friend, and he shoots the monkey to save his friend, which is like, okay, good move, right? But it's like I felt like I was invested in the story, and I was in on the same level of tension as the main character, and that was one aspect of the story that really impressed me. And I like it when I can, like, you're in it on the same terms as the character because you're having the experience that was intended for the comic book, and you don't always get that. And I liked that a lot because it wasn't possible to tell which one was which.
Okay. Yeah, again, the story wasn't anything like I could look at it and be like, oh, well, here's what I knew about this going into this, and here's something that was, I liked, didn't like. It just felt like it really felt like an old, natural comic, is what it felt like, which is great for me. That brings back a lot of nostalgia because I'm old. But it did feel like comic books that were written when I was in high school. And I thought that was kind of cool. There wasn't this funky, crazy thing. There's not this either propaganda or a piece that somebody's trying to push. There's nothing. This was a organic, well done, and a fun comic. Even though I didn't understand some of the story, I honestly had a lot of fun with this comic.
Yeah, no, it was a fun read. What do you think, Alex?
So I have read various things of Hellboy and the spin-off various series. So it's like I've already been introduced to this character. Like, there's been times where Hellboy and his father, growing on up when Hellboy was still a young child, reading like pulp era comics of Lobster Johnson and, like, various other characters. Cool. So it's kind of like I've seen some of the various other things. So it's like I think I have a little bit more of an insight of, like, okay, this is just how this world works, and this is how these various characters interact, and the spiritual planes, the dreaming and things of that nature. But it's definitely been interesting to hear your guys' point of view of, like, part of this mythos, part of these stories.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we beat this one enough.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to Batman Max 1 and 2. I thought there was a thing. I must have dropped my note somewhere, but
only the first few issues have come out. So back in the 90s, when Image Comics was first founded, they had their initial run of superhero books, and then the Max was like basically one of the second generation books that came out, and it was kind of like the one that was like the weird Odd Man Out book that didn't really fit what they were trying to do, and it was kind of actually probably the first book Image would eventually become as basically a more successful version of Dark Horse. But it's a really bizarre book about this guy who's basically a bum, and he gets hit by a car, and the woman who hits him somehow sucks him into her dream world, which is called the Outback, and he gains a costume, a superhero costume, to kind of like be basically the protector of her parallel universe, leaks out into our world and becomes him. And he's got these really cool claws or his middle fingers, so he's always like flipping people off. And it's absolutely bizarre. If you remember MTV doing the Max show, that's pretty much a word for word interpretation of the book, except for the Savage Dragon didn't appear. But
the Pit.
Was that?
Savage Dragon, the Pit didn't appear within the animated series. Yeah,
and Mako the Shark Man didn't either. But the thing is like recently IDW did a re-release of the Max series, and then out of that apparently came a crossover where Sam Keith comes in to do a Batman story, which is not the first time he's done Batman, actually, but he's doing a Batman and the Max. And it's basically, the Max is one of the Arkham Asylum inmates. And it kind of takes place within the context of the original Max series. And some crazy psychiatrist is plugging in electrodes into the head and basically trying to pirate his way into the dream universe that the Max is stuck in.
Hey, wait, that doctor, isn't he the doctor, the scientist from Nightmare Before Christmas?
I haven't seen that.
He sure has a look of it.
He looks like him. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, but like the integration within the Batman mythology is pretty clever. Like he's like apparently the main villain of the Max, Mr. Gone, has been an associate of the Joker, and the Joker in his psychosis can enter these dream worlds, and that is actually a fun augmentation of the Batman mythology. And like in the course of the Max, you have these things where the Max is slipping between the dream world and the real world at the same time. So you see like how the blimp flying overhead is an air whale in the dream world, and all these, like how these things kind of overlap, and it's a really fun though strange series. Alex, I think you were the bigger Max fan than I was, though. Do you have anything to interpret to add to this?
Initially, I think like my introduction was the MTV animated series of the Max, and then eventually, found out it was like, oh, there was comics on this. Yeah. Sam Keith has definitely been, to me, like a big inspiration of like some of my art, his very mixed media. Mm-hmm. And I know for the majority of people, this isn't something up their alley, but for me, it has been something that I've really enjoyed. Seeing like the different styles, the abilities, and mediums as an artist, seeing what he can do.
So you're talking about it in
just as, what's that?
You talk about the current crossover, or just in general?
Just in general, that, and also this comic book does show a showcase of like his variety of different skills and abilities as an artist.
Oh, it's amazing.
And it's like I could see where it's like you can see a majority of different styles, because he gets very kind of cartoony, and then there's parts where it becomes very realistic. Like in number 2, there's a picture of the Joker where it's a close-up, and it's more of a realistic style, but it still has that kind of raw emotion, as he uses colors that generally don't follow a normal figure. Mm-hmm. That just makes it much more expressive and has more of a feel to it.
I also found it interesting how some of this stuff was not digital art, because you look really close and like, this is hand-drawn pencil. Like you zoom in really close and you can see his pencil marks, and then where he inked and colored, and the lines, like he didn't, like the pencil isn't erased, it's still there, and it's oh my god, like.
I would have to say it's like a lot of that kind of reminds me of how Magic the Gathering or D&D artists, especially during the 90s, did very similar things of like take a rough sketch, do watercolor or other type of paints, and then ink right on top of it, but not erasing.
Yeah. Well, and it also reminds me of what he did, because like he had worked on the first couple issues of Sandman with Neil Gaiman, and you and I have talked about this, and we reviewed it in the original run of episodes, where like it's literally a masterclass in how to make comics. Like the way he did panel arrangements and how all these things was just, it's like a work of genius, and yet he thought it was horrible and didn't even want his name on the book. And you're looking at how he did the panel arrangements on this one and the things he's done. It's absolute genius and creativity. Like he takes the standard technology of paneling and storytelling, and it's at an entirely new level. It's like comparing a regular guy that tells jokes to Robin Williams. It's there's no comparison. Doc, we need to let you talk.
I mean, I can just let you guys go. I definitely didn't get out of it what you guys got, but storyline, it was really unique. I just it had some fun functions. And Alex, when you talking about how the art changed, I noticed it was the difference between being in the Outback and the real life stuff too. Because in the Outback, like it comes up every now and then in my switch of pictures, but like Joker has an extended neck and his facial features. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of I don't want to be insulting because I know people like the art, but it's very caricature of it. It's like emphasis on all the stuff. Like Batman's ears are like 3 miles long, and you know the Max, just the overemphasize, and I know it's a style of drawings, but that's what it reminds me of. It is a pretty different kind of art. It's not a comic I would read. The art would honestly just throws me off. But I think we've discussed it in these things. Is I'm not a big what unusual art you can do. I the more realistic you are, the more impressed I am with what you do. This isn't that, but it was like little things popped up. That scientist, all I heard was the voice from the scientist from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
The storyline itself was fun. It was hard to follow, but it wasn't hard to follow because we were going into the past, going into the future, all this other stuff. It was hard to follow because like it would just stop being in the Outback and start being, and then you'd see people being different areas during that. And it was really unique, and that part was a lot of fun. I'll be honest with you, the story, it was a lot of fun. The lettering, there wasn't anything crazy with that, but again, we've seen comics where people do the lettering and it's not the right person saying whatever, or it doesn't make sense, or something's just misspelled. This was again, the lettering made the storyline go really easy, and it was just tried and true lettering.
So, Sam Keith's stories are usually a bit of a fever dream. Like, it's very bizarre. but that's how it always is with him. He's kind of like on a different, like, he's on a whole other trip with what he writes, but he does have a plan.
I think you're right when you say trip, because it was like somebody wrote a story and then tripped acid and drew it out.
Yeah. I actually, as far as the art goes, I mean, as far as with Batman, I actually was kind of impressed that he was kind of reining himself in, because Batman should have had size 52 feet and rippling like when he drew Batman before, like it was just it was bizarre, the proportions, and this Batman seemed a little pudgy, but he was things were all in the right place at least.
There was one frame in this, I don't know if you guys caught it, where Joker looks like Beavis, or it looks like Butthead, and Batman looked like Beavis. I don't know, or the other way around, or whatever.
I did not see that. I'm going to have to go back and look. That is appropriate, though. Yeah, okay. That sounds about right.
And I'm not trying to be insulting. This just is not my thing. I thought it was well done. It's hand drawn. But again, it reminded me of a character. I'm saying that wrong. I know I am. Caricature, where you sit down, the person draws you, but they like, if you have a big chin, it's like way out to here, and if you got big eyes, they like spoke them out the whole head. That's the feeling I got with this, and even though those people have talent, it's not. I don't know. It's not my thing. I think other people.
No, I get you.
It.
I mean, I think this actually goes into that part of like why we do this review of the show, and actually shows us the showcase of like our various levels of interest. So going back onto various other Batman, art wise, I really didn't like Batman Damned, and it was just, to me, it just did not have that extra character, or that like this has more of a graphic design. This breaks down the elements of the characters, and I wouldn't really want to say like tunes them, but thinking about like what you're saying, it isn't so much that realistic style. There are realistic elements that Sam Keith uses, but at the same time, he uses elements that are enhanced of what the features are naturally. And I can see where like you're coming with this, Doc. And it's just, that different points of view of like, to me, I really enjoy this. And yet, like the other one, you know, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, the discipline, the style, the way that this person was as a artist, the person that did Batman Damned, amazing level of discipline and style. Did I like it? No. But can I respect the person that did it? Yes, of course. You know, it's like that's a level of talent and you know, understanding form and structure of human anatomy and things of that nature. But it didn't thrill me. I didn't feel like there was something special and unique more than the fact of this was a person that was very disciplined in their craft. Whereas this, I really enjoy, but then again, I like cartoons. I like that exaggerated features. I like those things where it goes like, oh, wow, I can't take my phone or these old things called cameras and take a picture and go like, okay, I can just match this with the artwork.
No.
At least that's my 2 cents on that.
I'm not trying to be insulting, and I think I tried to let that be off.
I don't feel like you were insulting. I just feel like that's the interesting part of this debate is like, you know, that level of what interests we all have. You know, some similar and others where it's like, okay, this is what I lean towards and this is what you lean towards.
No, and again, I think it was well done. I think I was already wanting or dreading it when I went into it because I'm not a big fan of single writer, single artist kind of things, and I know a lot of comic books that I don't like and that I don't enjoy is all done by one person. Yeah. But I will say that this is a step above those comic books. It blows them all else away. Like, he's got amazing talent. The storyline, like I said, everything all around was really well done for what you wanted it to be. Me personally, it's not going to make me go out and read the Max. I'm not a big fan. I did think it was really unique. I like that the features that he didn't caricature looked really well done. Like Batman's face in the mask area, I think that was really well done. One of the first shots of the Joker was mesmerizing when you first saw him. And then it got into the cartoony thing, and it just kind of lost my interest. I know that I'm not even going to lie, I think I'm a minority when it comes to comic book people, where I like the realistic drawings, but that's just me. I just think that the talent, some people call it copying, because that's what they say, they're just copying something. But I think it's really... I get amazed when I watch those videos. They flew one kid over a city one time, sat him down with a pencil, and he drew the city panoramic. That's amazing to me.
That is amazing.
No. I agree. It's like, you know, that is a level where it's like, I would love to have that capability of just go, okay, I look at it and I'm able to replicate it. But, you know... yeah, I could replicate it with a click of my finger, but I mean, still, it's, you know, it's an amazing discipline, and I won't, you know, take that away from anyone that does that.
Well, you know, the thing that impresses me most with this, and I kind of want to go back and look at the Max now because I don't think I really appreciated it for what it was when it first came up, but just the looking at what he can. Like his understanding of the medium and the creativity on it, like, you know, like just handling panel structure and storytelling and using the characters, you know, physically become part of the page in like just knowing when to break panels and wrap panels around characters and just like how elements on the page become the panel borders and all these super creative things he does that elevate the story, and it's you know, a well executed comic book. A lot of these elements should integrate with the story very smoothly. Like you should never even notice the lettering in the first place if it's done right. And you know, he gets that on a level that nobody else does. Like I haven't seen too many creators that have his understanding of how to assemble a page and put it all together. And that's something where it's like, you know, like. This guy should be teaching classes on how to do this. He's the one, you know, like, you know, if you want to write a good book, you want to learn how to write comic books and really take it the next level, maybe you should look at some Alan Moore stuff, or like just Chris Claremont back in his heyday, and looking at like some of the great writers in the medium and the people that have been the most accomplished. Well, looking at this guy, if you want to like know how to put a page together, you should be looking at Sam Keith. This guy really has got it figured out.
Yep. So let's switch over and do our final thoughts. And Woody already kind of started, so why don't you continue on with your thought process there?
All right. Well, I really enjoyed Lobster Johnson. I'd say that make it a 4 out of 5. I would only withhold a star just because the story is a little weird and hard to follow in places. But I really enjoyed it. With the Max, I would say it's definitely a 5 out of 5, but it's one of those books where I think it probably reads better in trade because it's so bizarre and so out there that it is I had the same experience with Doc that it is hard to follow. And I was mostly on board because I knew I was sold on the creator and I had read the original series and seen the show. So I knew what I was getting into. But if this is your first introduction to the Max, you might want to trade weight on this one. But but it certainly was definitely a good read.
Okay. Alex, what's your final thoughts on these two?
So my final thoughts was with both comics, it was one of the rare times where I didn't have to go on to Comixology because I actually physically own the comics.
All of these?
So, yeah.
You've been buying Batman Max.
Yeah.
Nice.
So for me, it's like it was already in my my comic book Dropbox that I have a local comic book store that I go to and get an assortment of various comics. And it was already one of those things of like, I didn't mention to you, but it was like, oh, okay, I already have these. So to me, it's something that I enjoy because it's a mixture between the nostalgic level of, for me, Max, and also I do like Batman in a lot of his zaniness and also his various gritty seriousness. And for Lobster Johnson, it was also a nostalgic part because I definitely do enjoy the Hellboy series, and I do love a lot of the art. So it was kind of one of those things when you pick those two, I was chuckling to myself because it's like, okay, I don't have to go onto the website more than the fact of like, I thought I was going to get some screenshots, but thank you, Doc, for getting all those done.
No, it's not a problem. And I think this is the first time I was reading. I was like, I'm not fighting somebody for pages.
Yeah. That's why, because I didn't have to look online.
So if I may ask, does your regular shop owner, does he have standing orders to sell you anything that has the Max in it?
She does.
Okay, yeah.
So anyways, I felt that neither one of these books had anything that jumped out at me. And that's just, I am not an avid reader by any means. I'm very unique in my reading. And come on, Woody, die.
Excuse me.
Darn it. Okay, so anyways, if you go over, man, our ratings, like, it just happens. There wasn't anything crazy unique. Like I said, Lobster Johnson felt like an old-style comic book to me that was really fun. I haven't read one of those in a long time. Batman the Max was a little bit too far-fetched for me, but again, I could follow along even though it was all over the place. The story was kind of catchy. I wasn't a huge fan of the art, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be, and probably say it would be a lot of fun. Outside of that, I don't think we have any new announcements for a while.
Well, we're still working on the website problem, but we've been posting pages. So if you check out our Twitter, which is on my card, that would be. Oh wait, my Twitter's not on here. Son of a. No.
Is it at Cyber Symbiosis? Because that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, at Cyber Symbiosis. I thought I had my Twitter on here. Well, anyways,
it's legitimately under your picture in this thing all the time.
Okay, good. Well, I thought it was on my card. Apparently, it's not. Anyways, all the links for the latest pages will be on our Twitter. Follow us on Twitter.
Okay.
We have a really great, effective social media person that is just knocking out of the park every day.
And again, just pay attention. We'll make more announcements as things happen. I started a new series. It's Doc versus Call of Duty. It's just Doc versus COD. And so come on out with that. I hope to see everybody getting on this YouTube thing and just doing a little bit more of the Twitch thing. But whatever. Read more comics, keep it nerdy, and live your dreams.
Bye.